Glad to have you back once again. Thank you for making TVC News your preferred option for monitoring the electoral process as Nigerians go to the polls to elect their governors today and state assembly representatives. Don't forget, the election is taking place in 29 states. 7 states are exempt because the elections are off-season. Remember that the courts decided in the cases of certain governors candidates who went to the courts to contest the elections and had, the elections staggered. But today elections are taking place in 29 states of the Federation and others are off season. My guests remain Dokun Adedeji and Janet Mba Afolabi. We've been looking exhaustively at the process, factors determining voter turnout, the process of the election, the conduct of the electoral umpire, the performance of the electoral umpire, and other issues that are in contest and not in contest. Before the news, we looked exhaustively at the powers of INEC to postpone the election and bridging the gap, bridging the gap between accredited voters and total votes cast. And relating it now to some of the reports that our correspondent brought in, will continue in the same breath. So now I'll come to you, Doku. So bridging the gap between accredited voters and the total votes cast, the process is now winding down. So there really appears to be no hope, or perhaps if we waited until we get in reports from across the Federation before we begin to say that, okay, we'll have less numbers in total votes cast in the governorship election, or we'll have more than what we had in the presidential election.
You know, the painful thing that one saw from the report is the fact you see educated people, not small kids, adults, saying to you that, why should I go and vote? I'd rather be watching football, playing PlayStation. About something that concerns you. I mean, this needs to be addressed. And it's by all of us and a consensual thing, and then maybe by parties. And then why would you then complain when something goes wrong and say, these people are bad? There's a quotation that I can't remember who said it. He said, we get bad politicians because of people who do not vote. Because if you stay at home, and I mean, we saw some people playing football. We had in some states opening shops on a day that everything has been said, no, don't do this, and then go and vote. It's painful. It's painful. It just means that all of us must get involved. The INEC, because I just learned from, we were discussing here that INEC even has a section that is in charge of voter education. For me, it's a major surprise because I don't see such activities at all. Who are they supposed to educate? Do they do it? And how much is voted for this? And so why do we get a return for what they're supposed to do? If there's a marker of accountability, maybe there'll be a better response. And then what then also are the parties doing? What are also individuals doing? Also the media in educating people and bringing out facts why people should, and why when we want to collect PVCs, why do we make it difficult for people to collect? Why do we make it, it should be a process. And then finding a way that it makes it easier for people to have, as they have their ATM cards. We all have a lot of work to do in this, and it's painful when you look at people that are supposed to, I think the chairman said 84 million, were people who collected their cards or something.
Registered voters.
Registered voters. And then you then see people actually voted to be 29. And then you ask yourself, that's about 50-something million not in the basket. In a country like this of 180 million people, and then we complain every day that things are wrong, they will continue. The politicians then know that they don't need to satisfy us to do anything. We just need to find a way to bridge this, to make it more important for people. But again, I am hoping that today we should find more people voting, because this is the area that concerns your daily life.
Absolutely.
Your daily living.
Let's get more reports now about how the process is going from Femi Akonde. Hello, Femi. Femi Akonde is in Makurdi, the Benue State capital. Hello, Femi.
Buki. Yes, I'm at North Bank, the capital of Benue State. That's Makurdi, here at a polling unit where voting has ended, and what is ongoing right now is the sorting process before counting starts. And you can see at that particular polling unit, you can see most of the voters are crowding the electoral officers now, closely monitoring the process of sorting before counting starts. This is a very delicate process. It's a time when tempers begin to rise, especially among party agents and even the voters around here. So the electoral officers are ensuring that everyone is on the same page, showing them the whole process, trying to ensure that the whole sorting and counting process is done in a very transparent manner so that everybody would be pleased with the whole process here. But you know what election observers are talking about is what they call an appreciable voter turnout. You know, in Benue State, there's the number of registered voters is about 2.4 million, and just about 90% of this voting population collected their permanent voter cards. But during the presidential election, a little over 50% of these eligible voters came out to cast their ballot for the presidential election. But you know, observers are beginning to say that it appears that the turnout during the governorship election and the State House of Assembly election here in Benue State is a little higher than that of the presidential election, because it appears the voting population here are more interested in electing their governors and members of the House of Assembly, because this is obvious from their turnout. They are more interested in these particular elections than that of the presidential and the National Assembly elections.
Now, Femi, earlier on there were reports of violence in some parts of Benue. Any update on that?
Yes, people have been talking about violence, and we have seen a few, but most of the violence we saw here in Benue State are not related to the election. They are not electoral violence. They are just gang violence. So many youths roaming the streets and just causing trouble, but they are not related to the election. And most of this violence are taking place far away from the voting area, because there are soldiers around monitoring the whole situation, ensuring that the voting area is protected so that the voters can feel safe to cast their ballot, and the ballot will also be protected.
Also, your background appears busy. Are they all party agents, or are they voters who have completed the exercise but want to remain and see the outcome of the process?
Yes, there are voters who have completed the exercise. They have cast their vote, but have refused to leave this voting area, their polling unit. They want to monitor the ballot. According to the sensitization a lot of them got from even civil society and their political parties, they have been told to cast their vote and also hang around and monitor the sorting and counting of the whole ballots cast. They say that this is a way of ensuring that the election is transparent and credible. So they are here trying to also validate the transparency of the election by monitoring the sorting and counting.
Femi Akonde, thank you for bringing us up to speed with the electoral process in Benue State. It appears a very thorough one there. Voters have come out to exercise their franchise, and it appears satisfactory because if there were people who had not been able to cast their ballot, there would still be some concern and perhaps a call for extension. So from the looks, it appears a mixed bag. You know, in some states, there is a rather unimpressive turnout of voters, but in some states like Benue that we have seen, and I recall Kwara as well, the voter turnout has been impressive. So are we looking this time around at an increase in the number of accredited voters and total votes cast? Janet?
Yes, it can be the same in all the states, depending on the level of involvement by the voters. Some, like the ones that we saw in Cross River, and I feel that those youth, they are seriously disorientated. They need leaders, they need people who will now give them a reorientation. And some of them may have been as a result of long history of broken promises, long history of betrayal of public trust. So they feel disempowered, they feel deprived, you know, and it's also as a result of long history of deceit, deception, and so they are keeping back. They are staying away from a process that they are supposed to participate in, but it's a very wrong attitude. It is not an attitude that I encourage or I think they should allow to go on, because that way they are not correcting the situation. That way the situation in that state in particular is going to get worse. At the presidential election here, your correspondent showed us where the market was in full swing, as if there was no election. You know, everybody went about his business as if it was a normal day, it was not an election day. And today we are seeing a repeat of that. So a survey, maybe INEC or some CSOs, they need to do a survey on what is the problem in that state, this Cross River state. It's a general problem, but that one is really pronounced from what we have seen and from the way that the youth have spoken. The youths, no matter how bad they feel, they should realize that the leaders we have today were also youth at some points in their time, at some points in the history of this country, and they did not fold their arms and stay back and were watching. The Asiwaju Bola Tinubu that we have today, he was a youth in the days of the military. He did not sit down and say, I'm disgruntled, I can't do anything, and let them do what they like. No. He was an activist. He joined NADEC. All of them, they played major roles in condemning what was happening because they got involved. They got involved. So I want these youth to start getting involved. They should gather themselves, the active ones. Youth are supposed to be active members of the society. But from what we saw today, these are very passive. They are dormant members of the society. Maybe because too much of social media, social media has given them so much work to do. For 24 hours, they are there chatting or running commentary of what they don't know anything about. So I want them to be involved in activities that will move this country forward, that will move they themselves forward. Because you see, growth is a process. There is no shortcut to growth. You have to go through all the processes. You can't sit down playing game or playing football and then you expect that tomorrow one leader will bring you and say, come and lead. It's not possible. You have to go through the process. When I was coming, the express, Lagos-Ibadan Express, the beggar part of it, there were 3 groups of guys playing football. And we were honing and honing, they refused to. And they put goal posts on the
Trunk A road?
No, Federal Road Express, 4-lane road. And they blocked it, different groups. So I got afraid. I said, if these boys don't move away and they start to attack, what will happen? And the security people were very far away from where they were. So we honed and honed. They were telling us, they were now the ones telling us to cool down. Can you imagine? On an election day, and in fact, I don't even know the adjective to use. Reluctantly, they went to remove the goalposts, the first group, the second group, the third group, and then I said, thank God, at least we are not attacked.
The attitude is distinct.
The attitude is
depending on the part of the country that you're talking about. But I noted that my colleague said something about the people in Benue believing that the governorship election is more important to them than the presidential election. Is that a right attitude to hold?
No, I think it's okay. You see, because the people who impact your life the most will matter to you. If truly we want to play politics as should be, people should be involved in local government election. They are the ones we see every day. They are the ones who should be responsible for the things that are closest to us. You know, the presidency...
But is it not a matter of education and enlightenment? Do they know that the center determines the amount of power supply that they get? Do they know that the center determines the allocation coming into their state governors, thereby also determining, you know, whether their parents, who are probably civil servants, will get, you know, their salaries as at when due?
You know,
do they know, or is it a matter of education and enlightenment?
It's also the same way we've been talking about that we just raised. It's about the interest, education, not university education, but education about what is important, civic responsibility. You know, when we were young, there was civics taught in school, there was history taught. Today, those things don't get taught. Many of these kids don't really care. They don't even know who the president is. There was a particular year I will never forget. Somebody came to contest, I think it was a beauty contest. She didn't know the VC of her university. It shows you the level of the privilege that is amongst our young people. I know one thing that I've said. Do you know, if you know the population of youth in this country, they can install the president if they choose to. Because the youth, let's say anybody, they'll be close to like 90 million. And if 90 million know what is good for them, they can say, this is the person that can be president in this country, and the person will be president. But look at them, playing football, not caring. And tomorrow if something happens, don't mind them. That's the way they do it. That's why these old men will continue to be president and continue to be senators, because young people are not, nobody will, I think it was Ashwajo Abiola who said it, nobody will call you from power is not a la carte. It's not served a la carte. Please come, let's give you power. No. You have to show diligence. You have to show understanding. Look at what is happening to our youth. Is this what they want to continue? And then they let people just, things go, and then they will play football when there should be an election, when there should be the people motivating, the people even opening market, that, madam, you can't open market, you know, this is very important. It's education. And
I'm looking forward to having a higher figure in total votes cast than 28 million. Well, in just a few hours, and then we would know.